Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Amoga Vairochana Mahamudra Mani Padma Jivala Pravartaya
You straighten your mats and cushions and stand facing the altar. Join me in taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, first in Sino-Korean, out of respect to our lineage, and then in English. So just throw your voice in as best you can. Shir Vimyone Shimon Samse Chema Chale Samchu Shivam Samse Shemam Chale Samchu Yilche And now in English, please repeat after me. I go for refuge to the Buddha
I go for refuge to the Buddha
and resolve with all beings
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings
I will penetrate the teachings
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into awakened lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into awakened lands unimpeded.
Please return to your places for another shorter period of meditation. As you settle in for this period of meditation, be in touch with your body. Check to see that you are sitting in a stable position, if possible, knees on the mat and your hip bones supported by your cushion. Looking down the bridge of your nose, softly focusing your gaze. Just checking for any areas of tension in your body and allowing them to release. And then following the breath for the next 5 minutes as I ring the bell. Please follow along as we do some mindful stretching and breathing. A good end to our meditation practice. Warming the hands, and then the face, maybe the eyes. Bringing the fingers along the sides of your face, all the way down to the jawbone. Breathing, placing the fingertips on the ridge of the skull, and moving from front to back. Just massaging some pressure points that are located there, all the way back to your occipital bones. Massaging the ears from the tops of the ears to the earlobes. Placing your knuckle under your nostril. Just push up slightly to feel your breathing. Leaning forward on the hands to stretch the lower back. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Now we bring our hands high over our head and stretch all the way forward, continuing to breathe. Sitting up. Stretching to the left. And then to the right. And this time as we sit, we clasp our hands behind our back and lean all the way forward. As you sit up, keep your hands clasped behind your back. And then we'll do a spinal twist, first to the left. Eyes coming all the way around to the back. And then twisting to the right. Place your hands at the base of your trunk. Take a nice deep breath. And then we're going to do some big circles with our upper body. Breathing in at the top. Breathing out at the bottom. Reverse directions. And ending at the top of the arc. Place your hand under your left ribs, your right hand under your left ribs. Lean to the side. Another good position for stretching the spine. And then reverse, stretching to the other side. Clasp your hands behind your head. Breathe in and then sharply breathe out. Twist to the left, to the right. Raising the hands high over the head. Breathe in. Do some abdominal breaths. Now, hopefully, you're feeling relaxed and awake. So, good morning, everyone. How's my sound?
Good.
Everybody can hear me? Excellent. So, for those I've not met yet, my name is Ma'um. It's spelled M-A-U-M. And I am one of the priests living at the temple. I live in the yellow house next door. And today, I would like us to have a discussion about teachers and students. And hopefully, as we get into this topic, it will stimulate some thoughts and it can be a little bit interactive. So, some of you are here for the very first time. How many are here for the very first time? Good. Actually, we should all raise our hand because every time is the first time. But I'm happy for some of this, the first time. And then others of us have been coming for years. And why each one of us comes and how we come is unique to us and our spiritual journey. So we like to say there are 84,000 gates to the temple. And it's always interesting to talk to people and to hear why it is that they showed up today. Public services like this are one aspect of what the temple does. We have, if you've been here before, you'll know at the end we have all these announcements. And we talk about things like meditation classes that we offer, study groups, practice periods, retreats, yoga, all these kinds of things. And we also have some training programs. So all of this is in service of spreading the Dharma, making it available in the West. Buddhism is still fairly new, and so we want to try to make it accessible to everyone. And so all of us together, we're learning how to live our lives more skillfully. As you look around the room, you'll see that some people are wearing gray robes. These are meditation clothes. Actually, you can order them on Amazon. So if you're wondering where to get them, say, hey, those look cool and comfortable. That's what you can do. Or you can make your own or acquire them in other ways. Some people are also wearing these brown, we call them kasas, these brown robes. And that's an indication these people have been ordained in some way. They've completed seminary or other types of training. Other people in the room are teachers of sorts. Well, it sounds a little demeaning, but it's not meant that way. But they are teachers maybe with not quite the same level of training. So, for example, Samoon, if you'd raise your hand, he's completed a Dharma Guardian training program. And Tongsan, who's managing the camera, is a person who is soon to be ordained as a Dharma teacher one day soon. So today we're talking about teachers and students. This is kind of interesting and I believe a little bit unique in what Buddhism offers compared to other religions. Although certainly in other religions there are teachers too. For example, the word rabbi I believe, means teacher. And there's imams, and there's priests, and there's ministers, and all these kinds of things. But in Buddhism, this is a special relationship that I'd like to explore. So Patricia Tsunam, who's sitting immediately to my right, or for you, to your left, is the head teacher of this temple. And she's the director and also a senior teacher. And she has directly trained those of us who are wearing these brown robes and the people who raised their hands a minute ago. So a few weeks ago, those of you who were here know that we celebrated the birthday of our founder, Samu Tsunam, who brought this practice, this tradition to us from the mountain monasteries of South Korea. So he was formally trained as a monk, and then when he came to North America, both to the US, Canada, and Mexico, he adapted those monastic practice to a more of a Western lay audience. So Samu Tsunam is a direct teacher of Haju Tsunam, who leads this temple. And next week, we will celebrate other Dharma ancestors. So in a way, this is part one of a 2-week Dharma talk about teachers and students. So as you recall, at the ceremony where we celebrated Samu Tsunam's birthday, we read stories about his life. We also read some of the teachings that he has given us. We did some chanting together, talked about practices that he's brought to us. And so what is this? And we will do something similar next week as we honor other ancestors. So next week, we'll be talking about Samu Tsunam's teachers, going a little bit further back. So what is this honoring teacher stuff all about? It's an interesting question to ask because when the Buddha, he was passing away, and his final words were, I'm to the effect, I'm just paraphrasing this, because people were saying, well, who's going to teach us now that you are passing away? You are a great teacher. Now we have no teacher. He said, you don't need a head teacher. You can let the Dharma be your guide. So that's kind of interesting. So why are we so hung up on teachers and lineage and things like that? And if you think about it, the Buddha said, I'm not naming a successor. He didn't say you don't need a teacher. Our teachers are still very important and essential to us. So think about your own journey to Buddhism and think about why you showed up today. For some of you, it may be as simple as, or as straightforward as you're taking a class and you're here on assignment. For others, maybe you're coming here after exploring other temples, or like many of us, maybe you were curious about Buddhism and you stumbled upon the Dharma, all these teachings, through books or through the use of the internet. There's just so much stuff out there. And so those are great resources, particularly the written literature, for getting at the basic concepts, maybe the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, this idea of emptiness, all of this kind of stuff. But as we try to put these concepts into action, we realize it's really tough to do it from just reading a book. and we end up saying, well, I want to hang out with some other people who are doing this so I can see what this is all about. And so eventually you might show up at the temple and take advantage of the Sangha. So in a way, all of us are teachers because we are, by virtue of being here, members of the Sangha. We're learning together, exploring together. In the Buddhist time, he defined the Sangha as his disciples, as people that he had directly trained and directly ordained. And he encouraged them to go out and share the teachings with others. But this is a good place to start, just showing up here today and being part of this Sangha. So a teacher adds an additional element, and there's both a formal and an informal aspect. So when we're talking about lineage, the teachings being passed down from the Buddha, an example of this would be the Buddha gave a Dharma talk, and he did not say anything at all during this Dharma talk. What he did was raise a flower. This is a stick, but pretend it's a flower. And one of the disciples way in the back smiled. So they got the teaching. That's an example of what we mean by sort of mind-to-mind, nonverbal transmission of teaching. So in a formal sense, when we talk about transmission, we're talking about transmission of knowledge, scriptures, practices from somebody who's recognized as a person of insight to a student. So that's sort of the formal thing that goes on. So here's a pretty good definition of a teacher in a more lay sense. It's somebody who knows the spiritual landscape and who uses their own insight and has been sanctioned or approved by a realized teacher. So Sama Tsunam to Haju Tsunam to the Ann Arbor teachers, and I'm simplifying this a little bit because there's nuances to this transmission and there's different levels of teachers. But basically that's the idea of lineage, is it goes from master to student, and then student becomes a master and it goes on to another teacher. So it's very much kind of an individual one-on-one learning process. In the Tibetan tradition, the teacher serves as kind of a guru function. And so our relationship as students to a guru is one of devotion. In the Vipassana tradition, the teacher is considered more of a guide or a spiritual friend. And in the Zen tradition, which is what we're part of, the teacher is an agent of transformation. And this, I'm going to say a little more about this because this makes the relationship between student and teacher very intimate and also very important, kind of one-on-one. Because an agent of transformation, think about what that means. You're transforming your character. In order to accept the teachings, you have to actually work on yourself and transform yourself. Okay. So what are the functions of a formal teacher? And so maybe you're not at this point on your journey yet where you're wanting formal training or a formal teacher. But the first function is to provide guidance in meditation practice, in how to apply precepts, the ethical guidelines to our lives, and in studying the teachings and scriptures, and unlocking these sometimes the written word, which sometimes seems quite mysterious to us. We need guidance in studying the teachings. So in this guidance practice, the role of a teacher in meditation, at least in our tradition, is to provide meditation instruction and one-on-one interviews. So if you're a temple member, if you've taken the meditation class, you would be welcome to come here on Sunday mornings and have a one-on-one interview with Haji Tsunam. And Haji Tsunam will work with you on your individual meditation practice, how to make it deeper, how to make it more meaningful. If you are want to apply our moral guidelines, our precepts to daily life, we have a series of classes that you go through. Chagwa is one of the teachers of those classes. And the 5 precepts that we study together are not to harm but to cherish all life, not to take what is not given, not to lie, but to tell the truth, not to misuse our sexuality. What's the 5th one?
Not misusing intoxicants.
Oh, yes, not to misuse intoxicants. Yeah. And so with the guidance of somebody who's been trained in these precepts, you explore each of these in depth. So now it's kind of a small group, again, intimate type of learning. So that's all providing guidance. Second function, offer encouragement and support, because if we're truly on this spiritual journey and wanting to engage in character transformation, and that can be a painful process, so we need encouragement to do that. Also, we need encouragement just to do the practices. As we were sitting for 25 minutes a day, you can imagine if you incorporate this into your life and you do it every day, and you sit more than 25 minutes a day, those of us who live at the temple sit 3 times a day, and when we're on retreat, it's like 10 hours a day. You need some encouragement, because that's it can not only tiring, but it can be a little boring. Our attention wants to wander all over the place. So getting this encouragement is an important part of the process. So the third function of a spiritual teacher is to bear witness. And this is someone who knows your spiritual practice very well and can give you a feedback, because as you're having dialogue with the teacher, bringing up things that are going on in your life, the teacher can serve kind of as a mirror, reflecting things back to you, so that you're able to see yourself more clearly. And so they're just bearing witness to your process. And then the 4th function is to offer challenge. So sometimes Haji Tsunam gives me a kick in the pants. She says, stop that, or look at what you're doing, or even to the point, sometimes I've heard her shouting at people to get their attention. Stop. Or engaging in just sort of this direct, forget the term she uses, some sort of direct talk. That's not right. What is the term you use?
Straight talk.
Straight talk.
Straight
That's
talk.
right, straight talk. So this relationship is not necessarily always pleasant. And, but that's part of the process. And if you do choose then to engage with a teacher, go through various stages in this relationship. So at the first stage, there's just this initial attraction. So you come to the temple, you listen to a good Dharma talk, you see Patricia Tsunam walking around, looking calm and peaceful. And you might say, I want what she has. And so you seek out a more formal relationship with the teacher.
That's called the honeymoon
The
period.
honeymoon period. That's exactly right, the honeymoon period. And during that period,
It
it's-
evokes the whole temple, really. Wow, people like this? Just this beautiful place, or whatever.
yeah, that's right. This beautiful place, these beautiful people, this beautiful temple. And so you fall into sort of a devotional kind of relationship. And then sooner or later, you realize that your teacher's feet are made of clay. And this can come up especially when you may be getting this kick in the pants, or you may be realizing that you have unrealistic expectations. Patricia Tsunam is not a mind reader, for example. Even though the teacher can provide insights, she can't just look at you and read your mind and figure out what's going on. There has to be some kind of dialogue. So she's not this God or something that can do that. And that's when you realize the teacher too is human. And in order to engage in this relationship, you both have to make some effort and some contribution. So eventually you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, even though you still love and respect your teacher. You get back to this idea that the Buddha gave of the Dharma is your teacher. And ultimately, it's you who has to be engaged in this transformation process. And once we do this hard self-work, we start to move beyond our own self and see that we too can become a transmitter of knowledge and a transmitter of the practices. And that's when we become more other-focused, more Sangha-focused. So because I want this to be interactive dialogue, let me see if there's anything else I want to cover before we have discussion. Oh yeah, here is one important thing. Because this is a delicate relationship between a student and a teacher, we have some constraints, some guidelines that govern that relationship. And in our tradition, we call this guidelines for wholesome student-teacher relationship, which I have a copy right here. We are supposed to post these around the temple, and we have in the past. Because it's written in sort of a dense, detailed kind of form, we found that it's not many people read it when it's just posted on the wall. But let me give you the gist of it. So a good teacher serves students as an example of a living Buddha, an embodiment of the 3 jewels. A good teacher makes a good student, and a good student makes a good teacher. And as they engage in this relationship, both are asked to look at precepts that we spoke about, that we use those as guidelines for how we interact with one another. The 4 great vows, which we say at the end of every service: all beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Blind passions, one root, I vow to terminate. Dharma gaze, one mind, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to realize. So you're both the student and the teacher are oriented in that particular way. We're asked to maintain beginner's mind. Each day we look at each other, we're a new person, right? Not the same as the person we were before. I remember our founding teacher, Patricia Tsunam, was once to ask the question, what if you have a student who just really goes off the rails and, for example, goes deep into addiction and goes on a bender, so to speak, and really strays away from the temple. Then they show up again one day. What do you do? And his response was, well, I welcome them back. This is a new person. And we begin again. So we always have this chance to begin again. The relationship is based on true and sincere hearts, devotion to practice, non-retrogression vow. You both make the vow that you're going to continue to go forward even when the going gets tough. Respect for the lineage, as we spoke about earlier. And then also a cultivation of something we call repentance or surrender. It's willingness to acknowledge when we're going astray and to talk about that and to make amends and to begin anew. So those are the guidelines that we keep going back to that govern this relationship. If you're in a training program, we would be reading or covering these in a more formal kind of way. So now moving us really into our discussion, which I'm very curious about, is given that we're all teachers and given they're all exploring, all part of this Sangha family, all exploring Zen together, where would you say that you are on this journey? So if I were to, maybe you could start with thinking, well, what brought me here today? And where am I at in my learning? What questions do I have about this student-teacher relationship? Where do I want to go from here? So I gave you like 5 questions. So why don't we start with just your thoughts about the value of a teacher in the Zen as you've encountered it today, these ideas that I've been presenting. So now we get to have someone passing the microphone. And anybody is available to jump in.
Could you repeat the question again?
Okay, let's just start with, from my comments that I just made, what made you curious?
Well, I would say you nailed it when you described how someone might come here. It began with a podcast, just with some Buddhist ideas that really caught my attention, and then led to books, written by the Dalai Lama. And I visited Thailand, so some things really spoke to me from the Wats there, the temples there. And then after reading, I found like I was missing something. I was missing interaction and Sangha, and that's what made me seek out the temple.
Uh-huh.
And I've, continued coming, and hearing about the teacher reminds me that, that's what I'm looking for as well. And I found even talking to similar people that have only been here a couple times, I really enjoy talking about it, and a reminder that, I think I could be a teacher someday too.
I'll start off by apologizing if I cough. I had surgery last fall and my lungs are in a different universe. I have been coming here on and off for maybe 7 or 8 years now. During that time, I have also been and still technically am a member of Westminster Presbyterian over in Greenview and Ohio Church. And when I was 19, I was ordained as a deacon and I served for 3 years. They taught me to serve, I love saying that they taught me to serve communion, and several years later, I used the communion ritual to serve communion to the demon in my basement for an audition. And they kept me, they didn't kick me out for that. What keeps bringing me back here is that I have always been, I guess, very interested in the connections between souls, between spirits. For the past few years, I've been working on a series of ultra short neo-futurist plays. If anybody knows what that is, they're plays based in truth about ghosts. Long story. And as I dug more into that topic and more of how we view different cultures, view souls and view life after death, my own church in some ways didn't become irrelevant, but became differently relevant. And that keeps bringing me back to exploring different modes of spirituality, which brings me back here to kind of go inward, to think about what I've learned, to think about how I use intuition as an artist and in a spiritual sense. And just to kind of keep working that cycle of bringing in knowledge, no matter how weird it may be, communion to demons, and then making that into something that I can then give back, mostly through art, sometimes in other ways, but yeah.
Thanks. You just reminded me of something too when I started coming here. I think I was focused mainly on enlightenment as a state of being that we can achieve. And I kind of think that I got a lot of that from reading books about Buddhism. I think with books, I think there's, at least with modern books that show up new on bookshelf stores, they talk a lot about enlightenment and no self. And I think that having a teacher, you can really focus more on like the everyday, what it is to walk the path of Buddhism, and get a lot of insights that you might kind of just really gloss over in the book. I mean, for me, I'd be like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm enlightened, but I don't know. I get still on something, and then I go to like, oh, I'm just not enlightened, but I like to think I am, because that's my favorite part of the book, okay. Yeah. So, but I think being here, I've really gotten a lot from the Sangha in a relationship, maybe that is a focus that you don't really necessarily get in books. At this point also, as far as my enlightenment goes, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I kind of got off the track. As far as like searching for enlightenment, now I kind of feel like it's a process that it goes on just like everyday life, trying to improve yourself. It's like you're really going to get there. I really do appreciate, everyone being my teacher and trying to be a teacher to others. It's a great reason to come.
Okay.
Just kidding. No, you can have that. I don't think I know. I originally came here because I was suffering. And I was trying to find something to not eliminate, but reduce it. And then when I heard, in life there is suffering and there is a way out of suffering, I went, oh, this is the place for me. I can be free of suffering. Wow. But now because I took it literally, now I keep coming because I continue to learn. And I continue to learn a little bit more about suffering and how to free myself. And the list can go on and on. But suffering brought me here. And the desire for knowledge and to improve my life, how I interact with myself and with others, is what keeps me coming here.
For the benefit of the newcomers here today, I think one question might be, does Zen require you to give up your previous religion, or does it take a position with regard to the existence of God or no God? Can you still practice your other faith?
Aren't you going to answer that question?
I was directing it to you, or how'd you?
Actually, I didn't hear the question. Would you put your mask down, please, Donna, and speak up? Ask the question again.
Oh, yes. For the benefit of the newcomers here, does Zen Buddhism require you to give up your previous faith, or does it take a position with regard to the existence of God or no God? Sometimes people moving from one spiritual practice to another encounter difficulties with people proselytizing and maintaining that their position is the only correct position, etc. So I thought you might want to speak about that a little bit.
I would say on that one, I'll speak out. Is that this is another thing that the Buddha said was, come and see for yourself. We do not ask people to give up their religions, but just to, from their own integrity, take on the practices and teachings which feel right, for them, for you. So it's called take what's helpful and leave the rest. Have you heard that expression? So a lot of it is then this, see for yourself, come and see. Yeah.
So this is my first time here. I think, way I kind of explored things at first was through books. And I feel like what I was kind of lacking throughout the books is doing it in a group setting, and almost keep myself accountable to meditate every day and just share an experience that I value as part of my life and part of my identity with other people.
I really appreciate your discussion on teachers and teacher-student relationship. I think one of the things that really caught my attention in these traditions that I have had the luck to experience is that there is I have found a very concrete awareness of how teachers are fallible people that are pursuing and are dedicated to the pursuit of virtue, but are still fallible people. nonetheless. I have seen in other religious traditions too much of an effort to separate religious leaders from their lay fellowship, and when I see that my teacher might have been fallible or continues to be fallible, but is persevering in that pursuit of virtue, that gives me energy to also rededicate myself to that same pursuit.
Thank you. Thanks to our camera operators and Tong-san getting her exercise, running around with a microphone. I appreciate your sharing of your comments and your engaging in this dialogue today. I hope that, we see some of you again. If you have questions that you didn't articulate or want answered after service, we're happy to do that. So, Samun, are you looking for any remaining questions on the chat?
I'm looking real quick here. There's a couple of comments.
Okay, can you take the microphone, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, the first one is from Pasam, who wrote in last week, and I wasn't sure who they were, but now I know. So they say, I'm struck by the role of listening for both teacher and student. So listening, I think, is the key. Mm-hmm. There's another from, sorry, I know the person's name, Juliana Tianda. One of the first lessons I learned at the temple almost 30 years ago was that every being is your teacher. Starting with Kamani, Achu's daughter, was my teacher on straight talking. And then she says, even though she was only 12 or 13 at the time, she taught me how to be honest and always be direct. And now I see her name is San Ong.
San Ong.
San Ong. Thanks.
Yeah, my daughter is still demanding that I be honest and direct.
So Haji Tsunam said her daughters are still demanding that she be honest and direct. Okay. All right, so I think this maybe is a good place to leave things today. Let's say together the 4 great vows, and then we'll have some announcements. So please repeat after me. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
So glad you all came through one or several of the 84,000 paths to the temple, me included. Yeah, it's great to see everyone here and all the new people come in. Hope you keep coming back. I've got some announcements that are coming up. We have yoga classes on Tuesday evenings at 6:30. We've also got introductory meditation courses, but they probably won't start up again for about a month or so. So I'll just leave that there for now. We have study groups after today in the study room. We have Dharma recovery, and you've already
met Mike here through his comments. We've got, let's see, member sittings, a Song of Meditation studies on Wednesday evenings via Zoom. And on Thursdays, also via Zoom, we have Way of the Bodhisattvas, but that's in the morning at 9:30. Let's see, then we also have the 5-day intensive retreat coming this week, starting the 8th, which is Wednesday.
The 6th, which is
The
Wednesday.
6th, which is Wednesday. And as you may guess, that's a more committed meditation period of time. So if you can't make it for all days, we ask that you consider coming for a while. You can just contact the temple and say you'd like to come, and that would be wonderful. And in case you're wondering about it, there's a mixture of sitting meditation, walking meditation, sharing of meals, and working outside, as well as staying overnight if you like. And I believe there's also an option for online. Well, thank you for your generous teaching by just being a virtue of being here. And this temple is completely supported by all the members and donations of your time and money. And also, after the service is over, we're asking to keep the front 2 rows of meditation mats in their place, and then we'll be putting the rest of the cushions up here in the corner and also by the door. So I believe, unless there's any other comments or questions, that's about it for today.
Just that also we have a 4 p.m. service each Sunday. And we're just getting that off the ground again after not conducting it during the pandemic. So we might pass that on. A lot of people like to sleep in on Sundays, so then they can still have a chance to come to a later service.
Okay, and for the microphone announcement, Hajud has just said that there is now a 4 o'clock Sunday service again, same place every week now. Thank you.
Thanks, Samoon. So let's all stand and we'll end our service with 3 formal vows.